Hello, Fueled listeners, and welcome to episode number 16 of Fueled. I'm so excited to have today's guest, Nick Graham, on the podcast. Nick has been my basketball coach for many years now. He's helped me to be where I'm at in my basketball career and has coached so many people to be able to take their game to the next level. He's been a mentor of mine for a very long time as a person and as a basketball player. He's doing some great things, has taken his business from the ground and built it into a successful company. Nick, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now with your company?
So right now, this is a very exciting time for me. As you know, when I first started with you, I had a handful of kids, and it's just been a gradual growth due to the success of the players I work with, like yourself. And now I'm able to work with NBA players like Lawson and Fredette, and work with Chauncey Billups. And we've been able to do some really cool things, work with Kyle Lowry. I'm partnered, I should say, with Spalding, and we've just launched interactive training videos that are going to be launched globally, and I've been able to work with them doing some things at the All-Star game. So it's kind of been a whirlwind of a year in a good way.
Awesome. So, Nick, how do you define success?
To me, success comes down to just being fulfilled. You know, I feel like we're all placed on this earth for a purpose, and I don't think that you will ever feel fulfilled or at peace until you're living in your purpose. You know, so like for me, this is the perfect job for me because I love basketball. God, for whatever reason, I always pondered, why did he allow things to happen to me? My dad's been a college coach since I was 2. I accompanied my dad's basketball team to the Final Four in 1995. Through basketball, I was able to meet the President of the United States in the Oval Office and get a college scholarship and things like that. And so I always, ponder why did these experiences happen to me? And I knew that the experiences that happened to me at a young age were given to me so I could help others. So the fact that I'm living in my purpose, I feel like I am a success.
I love it, and I've heard your story because I've been along and have had the opportunity to see you and where you've started and where you've come to be. And tell the audience a little bit about your story. I really want them to be able to hear your incredible story of where you started to where you are now.
Well, I think to me I've always aspired to be a college basketball player, and if anybody Googled my stats, they would probably think this guy's not very good. I didn't play as much as maybe I felt I should, and I didn't perform at the level that I was capable of, and I didn't understand why that happened. So as my life progressed after college, I realized that I went through so many dark times in college and overcame them so I could be the person that can mentor you and many others. And what's crazy is when I first got into this, I thought I was going to only impact young kids, but there are college players, there are professional players that I've been able to help get through their tough times because of some of the things that I went through. So
yeah. So how did you get from only coaching those few players in 24-hour fitness a couple of years ago to now being able to coach or to work with Chauncey Billups and to coach Jimmer Fredette, Kyle Lowry, all those people?
Sure. I think there are a few things that come to mind that allowed me to get from where I started to where I'm at now. One, I'm a dreamer. That's what we have in common. I like to visualize. I like to forward think. So I always prepared myself for the things that are happening now. It's crazy because a lot of the things that are happening now, it feels like deja vu because I dreamed about them, I prayed about them, I thought about them. I mean, I remember talking a lot about you about some of the things I wanted to do, and I remember people laughing at me. I used to, walk around, and this is when it wasn't like an iPhone 7. This is like an iPhone 2 when the camera phones weren't that great, and I was trying to make YouTube videos that were entirely too long and terrible. But I think, as a entrepreneur, you just kind of have to throw yourself out there and learn from your mistakes. But people would laugh at me. And in the last year, like I said, working with Spalding, felt like a movie set where I had to learn lines and everything. And we launched an interactive training program that's going all over the world. But these are things that I prepared myself for even when I didn't know if it was true. So I just think preparing myself, surrounding myself with the right people, and having mentors. And the other thing is just like I tell the kids I've told you is just developing good character. They say character is what do you do when nobody's looking? What do you do when nobody tells you good job. There were a lot of nights when I was up at 4 in the morning and doing those things and going to your games or somebody else's games that nobody saw, that allowed me to continue to grow and develop relationships.
Character, that's so huge. And in your life, if you have a lot of character and you're a very genuine person that shows through, and I had the opportunity to meet Caleb Maddox and Lewis Howes, and I've been following both of their podcasts and what they've been doing for a long time. And for those of my listeners who do not know who they are, they're both big personal development. They're both big in the personal development world. And meeting them in person, I was able to see how genuine, authentic, and nice, good people they were. So character is so big. And then another thing you said about is visualization.
Yeah.
Being at the beginning of your journey and being here now, you always visualize, and I kind of thought you were crazy too. I mean, you would have such big dreams, and like look where you've come now through having those dreams, and you always knew you were gonna be successful. And I think that's why you are successful, because you knew you were gonna get there, and you just made it happen. So that's awesome you do that. And what rituals do you practice that contribute to your success?
To me, I think just reading. Like I said, I'm really into my faith. So in the morning is kind of my time to just grow in my faith. And I feel like through growing in my faith, that allows me to find out who I really am. And one, it gives me the courage to overcome any obstacles that are going to come my way that day, or just long term as well. So that has to be the foundation. Other thing is just I love what I do. You know, the first thing when I talk to people, the first thing I ask them is, what do they do for a living? And are they happy? Because I don't believe if you're happy, if you don't have a passion for what you do, I don't believe you're going to overcome the tough times. You know, I always compare it to marriage. I'm not married, but if somebody's married, if, you know, a marriage overcomes the tough times because of the love you have for that person. In the same way, I'm married to what I do. I'm married to, you know, being a mentor. I'm married to being a basketball developer and different things like that. So I have tough times and bad days just like anybody, but my passion and my love for what I'm doing, you know, it overcomes any bad day or any bad stretch that I'll have.
I love it. And Nick, something you're always telling me is to like be committed in what I'm doing with basketball, to be obsessed with my game, and to really work towards that. And you've helped me to realize that with my basketball game, if I want to be the best and I want to be better and I want to exceed mediocrity, then I have to work so much harder than everyone else and be at that level and put in those hours and be obsessed with that vision. So what do you think about that?
I mean, and you know, when you look back at it, I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know about you, because I hope I don't mess this up, but one of my favorite, I'm a big quote analogy guy, but that I think it's, don't let your talent take you somewhere that your character can't keep you. You know, when you work for something and, you know, it comes through hard work and it wasn't given to you, and maybe you were treating unfairly, and you had to overcome that, you appreciate it and you respect it. Whereas if something was just given to you, you know, you don't appreciate it. So maybe you have the talent to be a young entrepreneur, you have the talent to do the things that I'm doing right now with basketball, but if you don't have the character, you know what I'm saying, you're not going to make it. I'm so fortunate that God didn't bless me with this opportunity 10 years ago, because I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to receive it. I don't know if I was completely developed in my character to be able to sustain it where I am now because of the things I've been through.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of times in life you have those setbacks and you have those trials that you think, like, man, why does this have to happen? But it's all in good time that great things happen. So I love that. And what would you consider the number one tool for success?
Number one tool for success, off the top of my head, I would probably say, I just think belief. I just think a belief in a faith. You know, again, going back to my faith, the thing that, you know, I told myself, or something that stuck with me, there were a few things that stuck with me, but it was faith, love, and hope. You know, God says if you have faith, love, and hope, you can overcome, endure anything that comes your way. You know, so I think those three things, you know, if you miss one of those three things, then you're not going to be able to sustain success. You'll give up. I see so many people, and that's why I respect and appreciate you. Even though you're 15 years old, you're one of my mentors because you have a drive and you have a commitment. You know, so many people, they're so committed to doing something, and the minute they get told no, or the minute that adversity hits, they just quit. You know, I listened to a podcast, Success Magazine, their podcast, and they said if you're going to do the things that you're trying to do, if the things I'm trying to do, basically pursue greatness and live out your destiny, you have to understand that you're going to get 15, 20, maybe 30 no's before you get one yes.
Awesome. So in your basketball coaching, you do a lot with mentalities and how you see the game and how you visualize the game and what mentalities you have going into drills and practices. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I actually just wrote about that today. I like to write a lot just about, having the right mentality. Here's the thing. Most athletes, most people that are trying to, aspire to move up in their career, they'll never make it because I think sport is the perfect analogy for life. But they say sport is 80% mental, 20% physical. But what we're doing, like most people, that's not even flipped. Most people it's go to work and do all these things, but they never do anything to develop their mentality. And as a result, they may have the talent, they may have the skills, but they're not mentally prepared to be successful.
Awesome. So in your career, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? To me, when I was a small college coach, it was the toughest time in my career before I met you, before I started my own business. I was just like any young struggling coach. I mean, I barely had enough money to pay my rent. I literally didn't have a TV, didn't have a radio. I did have Jordans, you know me. So I just had an apartment full of duffel bags and Jordans and a coffee maker.
Man, you would have some Jordans in there.
Exactly. Priorities. But it was very tough. Sometimes I missed meals and I worked. Sometimes I slept at the office. It was the toughest year of my life. And one of the players on the team decided to commit his life to following God because of me. And he said, I see how tough it is. I see how hard this year is for you, but something about you have a glow, and I want that glow. And this kid right now is a youth pastor and very involved. Actually, he's a youth pastor, and he's actually into, he's a Christian artist, music artist. He has a band. And so to be able to be used to help somebody, transform their life like that is by far the coolest thing that's happened to me.
Awesome. So take us to that moment in time when you consider your worst failure. And how did you overcome that?
So my worst failure probably was just playing in college. Actually, I was probably depressed for about 5 years after playing because I can honestly say I outworked everybody on my team, and I didn't get the results. I just wanted to be I wanted to be a part of the team. I wanted to be a good teammate. I think I played for my dad, and that was the root of the problem. My dad, it was his first college coaching job. He wasn't from that part of the country. So there was a lot of pressure on him. And me being his son, like, I took the brunt of that pressure to the point where it pretty much paralyzed me. And I just played with so much fear. I felt like, man, if I miss this free throw, my dad's going to get he's going to get fired. And so I had migraine headaches the entire time. And so as a result, my performance wasn't good. And so it was very tough for me to accept that. But looking at what I'm doing now, that's what I said. Those are the things that I had to go through. You can't help somebody if you haven't been through and overcame, very tough things. So anytime somebody signs up to be in a leadership position, if they've never, been to the bottom and been knocked down and they can't help you get back up and tell you what it means to get back up, then you're not going to be a very good leader. Or you're not going to be able to impact people, I should say.
I love it. And I think the trials that you have and the more you get knocked down, that's just more opportunity.
Yep.
Because it's when you get knocked down that you see who the quitters are.
Yep.
And who the people are really going to be successful are.
Yeah.
That's what distinguishes you from the average. So I love that. And,
I got one for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Henry Ford. Have you heard that story?
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
So Henry Ford went bankrupt 6 times before he founded Ford Motor Company. He tried businesses 6 different times and failed and went bankrupt before he found Ford Motor Company. And so, like, I wrote about that, and the question that I posed to the people that were reading it was, maybe you are the next Henry Ford, but how many people would get to that point? Like you said, most people, I guarantee you half the people would quit after time 1. Most of them by time 2. Very few would still be up there fighting, grinding every day, getting up early, staying up late about the 6th time. And that's what. And look at, his legacy is well beyond his years. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't know that story, so that's cool. I know about Henry Ford, but I didn't hear about that, so that's awesome. And Nick, what's the scariest thing you've ever done?
Scariest thing I've ever done is start A&A, which is Attitude and Altitude, which is my business. By far the scariest thing I've ever done. And I'm not an adventurous person at all. I don't ride roller coasters. I don't like heights. I'm like very, very, play it safe. And in this situation, I didn't. I just I quit. I started my business. I didn't have a job and do it on the side. I just said, this is what I'm doing. I didn't have any savings or anything like that. So starting that from scratch, I didn't have a gym. I didn't even have a name at the time. Business cards, just literally from scratch, and it's worked out. So
you committed to that fully. And I think I can remember from you telling me this, that your family didn't necessarily fully support that. They wanted you to do something else. So
yeah.
What do you think about that?
Their hearts were in the right place.
Yeah.
They just, they didn't understand, and it was the first. I just had such conviction that I knew it was going to work. There were times where I cried. There were times where I couldn't sleep. I was scared, but I was not gonna give up until I felt fulfilled and I saw this thing through. But yeah, they didn't. They advised me. My mom would, email me job applications and different things like that, trying to suggest that I get a job. But I knew that it was bigger than me, and I knew that the world, in my world, the basketball world here in Colorado, and wherever God takes me, I knew that I needed to be here. And what's crazy is what drove me, and I said visualize, and I visualized people like you. I visualized people like Eric Garcia and Sam Metz, and and the question that I kept answering was, if I'm not doing what I'm doing, do I trust that somebody else would care and do it the way that I did? And I answered that question no, so I said I got to keep doing what I'm doing.
Awesome. I love that story, and I gotta say it again, man, because I love how you visualize. You've been visualizing your success for a very long time, and that's what's brought you here. And I think that is one of the keys to success, is to visualize and really see in your head when you're going to be successful and visualize that. So really cool. What would you consider to be your number one strength?
My number one strength, I would just say being determined. My dad always says it's not the most talented person, it's the most determined.
Awesome. Who has been your greatest mentor?
My greatest mentor, I believe that mentors, you get different mentors in different seasons. So Coach Mo, he's actually, what's cool is he's Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and Chauncey, actually, he's like one of their spiritual mentors. But see, he was my spiritual mentor before all of them, but he's really helped me out. Chauncey currently, present day, it's definitely Chauncey. The cool thing about Chauncey Billups I'm referring to, the cool thing about him is, like, he's been so successful and he's such a public figure. Sometimes when you meet a public figure, when you really get to know them as a person, you get let down. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have your hopes that they're this great person, and it's almost like it's not fair to them. They can't live up to that. I had placed Chauncey on a pedestal and looked up to him, and as I've gotten to know him as a friend, as a big brother and a mentor, he's like superseded any expectations I can have for him as a person. The biggest thing that I've gotten from him is how he treats people. He's an amazing, and how he treats people that can't help him. It's not like it's just the people he works at on ESPN, just the people, kids, like you that are in the gym, or just people that he comes in contact with every day. So
I love that. And what are one or two attributes or habits that you've acquired that have contributed to your success?
Reading. Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable. I think that's the biggest thing. For so long in my life, I felt so insecure that I wouldn't admit my weaknesses. And I feel like that's what didn't allow me to be the player that I was capable of being. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten more comfortable with myself. I'll admit my insecurities. And I think that just opens up the door for people to help you. You can't ask for help if you keep everything inside. So
yeah,
being vulnerable.
Awesome. And what is the best advice you've ever received?
To that point, you can't get anywhere in life without help. And just applying that, not being afraid to ask for help, even if it's something insignificant. from something insignificant, as opposed to, if I was carrying some equipment into the gym, you know, asking somebody to help you grab a bag. But obviously, different things from bigger. So just asking for help.
I like it. And Nick, I know you do a morning routine that you have every morning, and you write in your journal, right? What do you have to say, Fuel listeners? Would you recommend people to write in their journals?
I think we're all different.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest thing is just like you have to learn yourself. So many people don't spend enough time with themselves because they're always on the go that they don't learn themselves. And I think the coolest thing is you never until you die, you really don't learn. You really don't stop learning about yourself. You don't stop learning about yourself. It's cool to get to know yourself. So, it was like 3 weeks ago. So I try to meal prep because I try to eat healthy. And I didn't realize that cooking is I like cooking. It's like a time where I can be, because I'm 100% engaged in what I'm doing. Nobody's bothering me. One, I'm not on my phone. It's one of the few things where you really can't be on your phone. And my mind just kind of is just at ease, so just take time to learn yourself.
Awesome. I keep telling my mom, and she keeps telling me I like eating. I don't like cooking. Not her favorite quality of mine, but
maybe you can come over. I can whip up something for you.
Yeah, all right. That sounds good to me. So, if you imagine you had just a couple of minutes with your former teenage self, what advice would you give yourself, and why?
Admit your weaknesses. Embrace your weaknesses. Embrace being different. Follow your heart. Follow the dreams that are in your heart, even if people don't understand them. Your dreams are your dreams. And the more time you spend with me, again, going back to my faith, because that's my foundation, the more time you spend with God and the more time you spend with yourself, you realize what you want out of life and you realize what you're capable of. So say, for example, my parents, when I first started my business, they didn't know my dreams. They didn't give me my dreams. So they can't, even though they love me to death, they can't take my dreams away from me. I see so many people allow others to just rob them of their destiny and their dreams.
I love that, and you've seen that in your life, and even though your family had the best in mind for you, you committed to something and you stepped out of your comfort zone, and because of that, you've been so much more successful than you otherwise would have been or could have been. So I love that. And do you have any last parting words of advice for Fuel listeners?
Just never stop growing. Just, like I said, you could be the next Henry Ford. I'm an optimist, and I just believe that greatness is destined for all of us. It's just our choice. It's just our decision to decide if we're going to follow that path. But don't let the failure stop you. If Henry Ford can go bankrupt 5 times and be one of the best car manufacturers this planet's ever seen, then we can get knocked down, and we can still do great things.
Awesome. One thing Caleb Maddox told me, and I think said in his TED that he gave last week, was the key to success is within the word key. Keep educating yourself. And if you do that and you're growing every day, then you'll be successful. So I lied. I have one more question for you.
All right.
What book would you recommend to Fuel listeners, and why?
The Purpose-Driven Life changed my life. It helps you understand. I never really understood that we have a purpose and that every moment is significant. I took days and I took moments and I took opportunities for granted. And, I think that transformed my life to make me realize, it made me have hope. It infused me with hope. But to realize when you discover your purpose, then you begin to live.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Nick, for getting on the podcast. Great having you on. And thank you all, Fuel listeners. I'll see you all in future episodes.